few weeks ago, the NBA and NBPA had managed to make history by navigating through the coronavirus pandemic. Better than most other sports leagues in the world. Their hard work resulted in a playoff environment that, despite not being perfect, was deserving of praise and left most people satisfied. However, the hardest was yet to come. Immediately after the conclusion of the season, the attention shifted over to free agency, next season, and how lost revenue would affect decision-making in the coming months. And so far, answers have been hard to come by. But as the days have gone by and numerous proposals have surfaced, it has become clear that, to get the 2021 season going, someone will have to make sacrifices. Whether that ends up being the players or the league remains to be seen. But we can be sure that at least a few people won't be happy by the start of the season. Welcome to Courtside. Today, we're taking a look at the reasons why it has been so hard to agree and why star players like LeBron James are feeling upset with the current proposals. A couple of months ago, most people expected the league to start its next season by January of 2021 at the earliest. Some analysts even believed that a start date between February and March was in discussion. These rumors were confirmed when Adam Silver talked about the possibility of going into January. The reason for that was simple. The league lost a large part of last season's revenue due to its suspension, and that was caused mainly by the absence of fans over the last portion of the regular season and playoffs. So, knowing that a large part of its revenue is related to the attendance of fans, there was no reason to rush a season in which fans couldn't go to games. However, that strategy only made sense for the league if the effects of the pandemic started to fade away, and there was a chance that at least a small number of spectators could attend games without risking their health or that of players or team members. But as the days passed, it became evident the pandemic wasn't going away anytime soon. To date, there's no guarantee a protection method like a vaccine will be available to the public in the following months. On top of that, multiple NBA cities are still dealing with restrictions to public meetings, making it hard to envision fans in the stands during the upcoming season. Then, when the league had better knowledge of how much was at risk, waiting for things to get better stopped being an option. The pandemic caused the league to lose about 10% of revenue during last season. A balance of its finances showed losses of $800 million in gate receipts and $400 million in sponsorships and merchandise. In addition to that, $200 million were lost because of a year-long ban in China. Those losses would already be hard to recover on their own. However, they might be a small number compared to what may be to come for the NBA next year. Assuming the complete 2020-21 season takes place without fans in the stands, the league could lose up to $4 billion. That amount would be dangerously close to half of last season's revenue and could hurt both the league and its players. But things could be even worse. Without fans in the arenas, most of the league's profits would come from its TV partners, and as we know, the NBA TV ratings weren't the best during the last few months. Still, the Orlando bubble helped stop the bleeding. Without it, there would have been an additional loss of $1.5 billion in revenue. So, going into next season, the league will try to make the most out of its TV deals. And to do that, it'll need to make drastic changes to its original predictions. As we were saying, the NBA didn't perform too well in the TV ratings during the seeding games and the playoffs. However, a lot of that had to do with the competition. Playing games from August to September forced the league to compete with the MLB and the NFL for the attention of consumers. In other words, if the league wants to make the most money possible from its TV partners, it must avoid playing at the same time that multiple other major sports leagues do. To do so, it would need to start its season quickly and condense it as much as possible so that it could finish by June. That would also fix the scheduling issues for the 21-22 season, as the offseason would return to its natural June to October period. And the regular season and playoffs could go from October to June once again. So, with that in mind, the league presented its board of governors with a proposal to start the 2020 season by December 22nd and finish it before the July Olympics. To make that possible, the regular season would have to be shortened to 72 games, and the All-Star break would probably have to be skipped. That proposal was far from perfect. However, considering the current circumstances, it might be the best the league can do to avoid a financial catastrophe while also trying to make things better by 2021. Still, despite being perhaps the best plan that's available, not everyone is feeling excited about it. For any proposal to be approved and executed, both the NBA and the NBPA have to reach an agreement. And while both parties have usually managed to find common ground without too much trouble in recent years, the Players Union has expressed its disagreement with the league's proposal. Players were the ones that had to be locked inside the Orlando bubble for months, and while that was something they did voluntarily, the physical and mental effects that such experience had on them are well known by now. For those who made it at least to the conference finals, starting a new season before Christmas would mean they would get only about half the time to recover they would have during a normal offseason. Then for a team like the Los Angeles Lakers, it would mean that veterans such as Rajon Rondo, Dwight Howard, and LeBron James could not enjoy a full recovery. At the same time, that would mean the defending champions could start next season playing well below full strength. That possibility had an immediate reaction from Danny Green, who talked about how physically and mentally straining it is to go to the finals, especially for players who have as many years in the league as James. He continued by saying he believes most of his team's veterans would probably sit out for the first month of the season if it started in December, and then added that they wouldn't want to show up willingly. Then a few days later, LeBron himself joked that he would be cherry-picking during the first half of the season if it ended up starting in December. At the end of the day, though, we can't know for sure what players would or wouldn't do. However, we do know that most players are not thrilled about the situation. In the words of Players Union Director Michelle Roberts, the overwhelming response to starting in December has been negative. So after expressing its worries, the NBPA made a counteroffer where it asked to move the start of the season to mid-January at around Martin Luther King's Day. Still, that date would present the league with multiple challenges. One of those challenges is that such a start would result in a later finish. That would make the finals to be played somewhere between July and August, a date when the NBA would have to compete with the Olympics and the TV ratings. That, along with the fact that the season would miss on a few key dates, like Christmas and New Year's Eve, would only make things more difficult from the financial side of things. If the season were to start in January, the league has estimated it would lose an additional $500 million to $1 billion. On top of that, the league would need to shorten the regular season even further, from 72 games to 50, to avoid sharing ratings with the July Olympics, according to the reports. From a financial standpoint, that situation would hurt the players just as much as the league. If fewer games are played, the revenue will be smaller, and then players could lose a significant amount of money too. With the 40% loss in revenue that playing a full season without fans will imply, the salaries of most players would already suffer a significant loss. For example, Steph Curry would go on from making $43 million to an estimated $25.8 million. If the league suffers additional losses, players will lose even more money. And while most of the league stars might be able to continue with their lives without too much trouble, that situation could be a difficult one for players with lower salaries. In short, a start in January would harm the league, the players' union, and even the fans, who would have to settle for one of the shortest seasons ever. So, what options remain for both parties? Well, if they fail to reach an agreement, both the NBA and NBPA can invoke the force majeure clause to terminate the collective bargaining agreement in an attempt to force the hand of the other. However, that would be the worst-case scenario. If the CBA is terminated, the league and players' union would have to negotiate a new bargaining deal on top of figuring out the start date for next season. That would take up even more time and make the losses even bigger for both sides. So while it remains an option, terminating the CBA would be the last resource. Still, it doesn't seem like taking such an extreme measure is necessary. In an act of good faith, both sides agreed on extending the CBA's termination deadline from October 30th to November 6th, making it the fourth time the deadline has been extended. That's a clear indication they both understand what's at stake with these negotiations. No one would see a benefit from terminating the bargaining deal and hurting a relationship that has been healthy and productive over the last years. And even when players might not feel comfortable giving up their time to recover their bodies and minds, or having a much shorter window to negotiate deals in free agency, but putting their financial security and next season at risk doesn't seem like a better option. Still, considering that 26 teams will have had at least 3.5 months of rest by December, there is the possibility the NBPA changes its mind, even if the Lakers don't like that. But as fans, we'll have to continue waiting and hope we'll get to enjoy a quality season, regardless if it starts in December or at a later date. Altogether, the NBA has faced one of the most challenging years in its history. And while things could get even more complicated going forward, it has repeatedly managed to find a way to put up a quality product and stop losses. So even while not everyone might be happy about how things end up taking place regarding next season, there's no reason to believe the players' union and the league won't be able to reach an agreement before it's too late. If they were able to come up with a bubble, they should be able to work things out once again. But now, what are your thoughts on this situation? When do you think it would be better for the NBA to start its next season? Let us know in the comments. We hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to give us a like and subscribe to our channel for more NBA content. We are Courtside.